It's 7:32 at 55 KRCD Talk Station. Getting into this segment a little bit late, and my guest, Congressman Brad Wenstrup, a little bit early. So why not just start early with Congressman Brad Wenstrup? Welcome back, Brad. Always good to have you on the program.
Thanks, Brian. How you doing this morning?
Doing well. You home?
I am.
You enjoy wrapping up the end of your long summer leave from Congress. When will you be heading back?
After Labor Day. I was 2 days ago. I was in California for a VA hearing. And then back home and back to work, and we're having a coffee with your congressman in Norwood today.
Oh, right? Good.
Get off with you.
Where in Norwood? If assuming one of my listeners might want to show up.
Bluebird.
Okay. What time?
Starting at 8:45.
All right. Well, there you have it. Congressman Wenstrup, Bluebird, 8:45. Now, you mentioned the VA, and I had a story the other day I didn't get to, but it was really distressing. We learned some time ago that the VA had spent on the order of like $16 million on artwork, and like half of that with just one hospital alone. So that sounds unconscionable when you have all of the problems behind the scenes with the VA, that they would even think about dedicating any time or money to artwork. But then it turns out they also have employed like 165 interior decorators. Congressman Wenstrup, what in the hell is going on over at the VA?
Brian, it's just a system that's out of control, and the priorities have been off for many, many years. And one of the things I can say that came out of the exposure of the wait list is that we're now digging into so many things that are very disturbing. And the big problem is when you have an agency whose doors stay open, no matter how productive they are or lack of production they have, that's a problem. And, no private practice can operate like this. No private business can operate like this. And we got a long way to go, because the more we dig, the more we find.
I guess I just have to scratch my head over the idea that they have the authority to make to engage in these expenditures, and that there's no oversight in that regard. They have that much flexibility. They could just go off and without any oversight, just spend $16 million on art. I mean,
really, that's what's happened to our government over the last 50 or 60 years. With agencies, they have the rule of law. They just do what they want. There's not enough oversight, and there needs to be. And it all comes down to constitutional authority, in my opinion, that things have to go through a Congress, and therefore the people can be represented. And that's the frustrating part. And so this stuff has gone on forever. It became the norm, and it's got to stop. It's got to stop. The VA is there to take care of veterans. And the Commission on Care, by the way, is really pretty good. It was a panel of people from private sector and a variety of experiences that really said there's a lot of changes that need to be made in the VA. One, to make it more in line to where veterans can get care, and two, that it's run more like a business.
Well, and therein lies the rub, Congressman. And the VA is ultimately the model that the current administration would want for everybody under Obamacare, this single payer nonsense. Mm-hmm. And you illustrate with the VA exactly why. Everyone loves the veterans. No one really wants to harm or hurt veterans. And yet you end up with an entire hospital system built and designed to serve their needs that becomes the most wasteful, inefficient, and frankly, dangerous to many veterans, given the wait lists and the treatment that they've received in some cases. It just is the big red flag, 800-pound gorilla in the room for people who keep pushing single payer. That lack of competition and oversight and accountability results in inefficiencies and poor performance. Period. End of story.
I mean, for people that really want to observe and make good decisions, you would look at that and say, oh, my gosh, we certainly don't want to go in that direction.
Right.
At the same time, we want to make sure our veterans get taken care of and that they get the care that they deserve and have earned. And I'm determined to try and make that happen, but it's a mountain to climb, as you know.
It sure is. Entrenched bureaucracy is difficult to deal with. Brad Wenstrup, Congressman Wenstrup, don't go away. We're going to continue because I want to find out about this ISIS intel. Overly optimistic. 741 at 55 KRCD Talk Station. Coming up top of the hour, right after the news, Clinton Cash. Peter Schweitzer has written a book. He knows all about the Clinton cash and shenanigans. In the meantime, though, Congressman Brad Wenstrup's on the phone. We're talking about, we're going to talk about now CENTCOM. Were you on the congressional panel that looked into the intelligence assessment and report on ISIS, Congressman Wenstrup?
Yes, I was. There were three of us that were assigned to do this, along with staff. It was offered to Democrats to participate. They chose not to participate. What this all started with was a whistleblower who came forward and said, this is a senior analyst, and this is at Central Command now, and saying our intelligence reports are being watered down, they're being ignored, they're being changed as they move up the chain. And that was a concern that they had. At the same time that this was going on, a survey was done amongst analysts to evaluate how they felt their reporting was received. And this was across all the commands, Pacific Command, et cetera. And 40% of those at Central Command felt that their reports were being suppressed or ignored or changed. Now, that's a huge number. At the other commands, it was nowhere near that, not even close. And that itself should have been a clue to the leadership that, hey, something's a problem here, let's address it. But those concerns were ignored. And so what we saw through this process is what appears to be a watering down of the intelligence, always on the side of things are better, things are rosier than may really be going on. So in addition to that, Brian, rather than taking intelligence reports, which gather information from a variety of sources, the leadership was basing their reports on operational reports from those that were in theater fighting the battles, which is very restrictive compared to the type of information you get from the intelligence community.
Okay, so a general or a commander in the battlefield is reporting back on his progress against ISIS, and that's his one-person assessment based upon the conditions that exist at that time on the field. Mm-hmm. What you're saying is, behind the scenes, and of course we all know we have all these other intelligence-gathering apparatus, and they are also doing their intelligence work, whether it's with human intelligence or doing signal intelligence, collecting data. They have come up with their own assessment, and one may argue, and it sounds like, that it is a better assessment because it includes far more pieces of information than just that one commander on the field.
That's exactly what was happening, and that is not consistent with typical intelligence community information gathering. So it was a change in protocol. There was a change in leadership during this time. We're talking a time frame of 2014 and 15, and so we started getting this optimistic operational reporting as opposed to what the intelligence analysts were saying. One of the explanations that we got was, well, we wanted to make sure that things were 100%. Well, in intelligence, it's never really 100%, or at least you put percentages on it. But when you're out in the field and you're getting information, or if you're back here and you're making decisions, combat-type decisions, you want to know every bit of information and perhaps the percentage of validity it may have, so you know what threats you may or may not have.
All right. What interest is served? I understand a political interest that Barack Obama wants to make the world believe, I guess, that he's making some inroads with ISIS. But if you're not really doing it, nothing's changed, and they continue to attack, and they continue to be a threat. So what motivation would there be to want to have a rosier assessment or report only on a rosier assessment? Is it only that one, or is there some other nefarious purpose that this administration is trying to dupe us about?
I can't think of why you would want to do that, because you're jeopardizing those that are in the field if you're changing intelligence reports and making things sound better than they are. But let me give you an example of this. So keep in mind, Central Command is within the military, and one time we saw CENTCOM give press releases, statements, and even congressional testimony, which were significantly more positive than the actual events. And so within a week of CENTCOM statements that said things like ISIL's on the defense and ISIL's losing ground, ISIL forces overran the city of Ramadi. And in that same vein, we'd see Central Commander at the time, General Lloyd Austin, said, we've significantly degraded ISIS, their ability to command and control forces is reduced, their sources of revenue are reduced, and on and on. And then 10 days later, the CIA director, Brennan, had a different story. He said ISIL's well-armed, well-financed, fighters are disciplined, committed, and battle-hardened, and left unchecked, they're a serious danger to Syria, Iraq, and even threats to the homeland.
Right.
This is within 10 days. I don't understand. So what we've done at this point, Brian, with the report that we've released, is gathered the information we were able to get from those that were willing to testify, that we could get to testify amongst the whistleblowers. We had some leadership testimony. The Department of Defense Inspector General is also doing their report. So we're looking to get more. We did not get all the information that we requested, which is typical. Always mind-boggling to me as a congressman.
Yeah, that's typical. I guess, the contrast between what John Brennan said and the CENTCOM command said within 10 days is really kind of what hits home for me in terms of being puzzled over why they would want to massage these reports or remove any information. We have both sets of information, CENTCOM's report, and we have what John Brennan said, that they're well-armed, well-financed, et cetera. So we see confusion. If we choose to look at it, the American public says, wait a second, are you dysfunctional? Here on one hand, you say no problem. On the other hand, we got this key critical guy, CIA Director John Brennan, saying it's all hitting the fan. That doesn't look functional. It looks stupid.
Well, it shows that there's not a coordination of the intelligence reporting.
Yeah.
Right? And so was this a leadership style, or is this something that was driven by something deeper? That remains to be seen, and that's what we need to continue to investigate. But I think that example right there just tells you, and the amount of frustration amongst the analyst community was tremendous by this survey and needed to be answered, and yet it was ignored by the leadership. And they even admitted that in some of their testimony.
And again, the motivation for wanting to ignore it and having that reaction is beyond my comprehension. It does not make sense. Congressman Wenstrup, always great having you on the program. I'll look forward to getting a further report on this as you get more information, and I appreciate giving my listeners an update today.
You bet. We'll keep you posted, Brian. Thank you.
Thanks much. Have a great week. 748 55 KRC, the talk station.